welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Or, I might show up at your door. I'm just here to share some creepy stories, so sit back and enjoy. Disclaimer: the content presented in the video is purely for entertainment purposes only. The theories and stories discussed in this video are speculative and are not supported by any evidence or proof. Viewer discretion is advised. Emergency Alert System. Internal log number 437. Date: April 28, 2025. User: M.Chun. I've spent 3 years working for Denver's emergency alert system and never seen anything like this. My job is straightforward: monitor the automated systems, run weekly tests, occasionally push out weather warnings or amber alerts. The system is designed to be infallible. Multiple verification protocols, redundant safeguards, two-person authentication for any manual override. So when an unauthorized alert blasted across every screen in downtown Denver at 3:17 a.m. yesterday, I was the one they called in. The alert read, "Emergency notification. Downtown Denver has been declared a ghost zone. Avoid all digital communications within affected areas." This is not a test. I was halfway through my first coffee when my supervisor's panicked voice came through the phone. "Chun, get your ass to the command center. We've got a serious breach." The office was chaos when I arrived. Engineers hunched over terminals, department heads on phones, our director pacing with the mayor on speaker. James, our night shift tech, looked like he'd seen a ghost himself. "I swear, Mira, I didn't push anything," he said, voice cracking. "The system initiated the broadcast autonomously. Authentication logs show no human input." I slid into my station, fingers flying across the keyboard. The alert had bypassed every security measure we had in place, transmitted from our servers but with no digital fingerprint, no user credentials, no authorization chain. Nothing in the transmission logs except the alert itself and a strange fragment of code I didn't recognize. "Pull up the camera feeds from downtown," I told James. "Let's see what kind of panic this caused." The screens flickered to life, showing various intersections and public areas in the affected zone. What we saw made no sense. Downtown was calm. No panic. No evacuation. No response whatsoever. Maybe the broadcast failed? James suggested. I shook my head. System shows successful delivery to all endpoints in the zone: phones, computers, public displays, traffic systems. 98% acknowledgement rate. Then why isn't anyone reacting? I pulled up the alert verification database and went cold. "Because according to this, we never sent an alert." James leaned over my shoulder. "That's impossible. We all saw it. Look at the logs. No alert was registered in the system. But here's the transmission data showing it went out." Director Rivera appeared behind us, her face grim. "Ms. Chun, a word?" She led me to the glass-walled conference room where 2 men in suits waited. One introduced himself as Agent Decker, Department of Digital Security. The other remained silent, typing on a tablet. "What exactly did you see on your screen, Ms. Chun?" Decker asked, not looking up from his notepad. I described the alert verbatim. "And this term, ghost zone, is that standard emergency management terminology?" "No, sir. I've never heard it before. Has anyone reported any unusual phenomena in the designated area?" The question struck me as odd. Phenomena? Like what? Electronic anomalies, communications disruptions, visual artifacts. My mind flashed to something I'd noticed but dismissed. There was some digital distortion in the alert itself, like compression artifacts around the text. Decker exchanged glances with his silent colleague. "Show me." When I pulled up the cached version of the alert, my blood ran cold. The distortion had changed. What were once simple compression artifacts now formed distinct patterns around the text. Swirling, angular shapes that seemed to move if I didn't focus directly on them. "This is different," I stammered. "It wasn't like this before." Decker leaned in closer. The artifact is evolving. That's not possible, I said automatically, though my certainty was fading by the second. Ms. Chun, Decker said, his voice suddenly formal. This incident is now under federal jurisdiction. You'll continue your normal duties but report anything unusual directly to me. No documentation, no discussions with colleagues. After they left, I returned to my station, mind racing. James looked up expectantly. System diagnostic, I lied. False alarm. The rest of the day passed in a fog of unease. I kept my head down, running diagnostics that revealed nothing, searching code that showed no anomalies. Everything appeared normal, yet the system had definitely broadcast an alert that now didn't exist. At 7:40 p.m., as I was preparing to leave, my monitor flickered. Just for a second, a brief distortion across the screen. I might have ignored it, but then it happened again and again. Soon all 5 of my displays were flickering in sequence, like a wave washing across my workstation. I glanced around. No one else seemed to notice anything unusual with their systems. The pattern changed, no longer a simple flicker, but a pulse. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS in Morse code. Then words began forming, one letter at a time. MIRAITSESYOU. My hands trembled as I initiated a screen recording. The moment I clicked the button, my displays cleared, returning to their normal state. The recording showed nothing unusual, just me staring at standard monitoring interfaces. I packed up quickly, skin crawling with the sensation of being watched. In the elevator, my phone vibrated. A notification, emergency alert system update required. I hesitated, then swiped it away. The notification immediately reappeared. Outside, the Denver skyline glowed against the darkening sky. As I walked to the light rail station, electronic billboards throughout the downtown corridor flickered momentarily. So briefly I questioned if I'd seen it at all. My train arrived, and I found a seat, trying to calm my nerves. The digital display showing stops and times suddenly changed. Next stop, Ghost Zone 1. I blinked, and it returned to normal. No one else reacted. Was I losing my mind? At home, I tried to distract myself with mindless television, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with Denver's digital ecosystem. I pulled out my personal laptop and began digging into archived system logs, looking for any precedent. At 2:13 a.m., every device in my apartment, phone, laptop, television, even my digital thermostat, activated simultaneously. Screens glowing, they displayed the same message. Emergency notification. Residential Block 17 has been declared a ghost zone. Digital entities detected. This is not a test. My building was in Block 17. The message faded after 10 seconds, devices returning to normal. I sat frozen, heart pounding in my chest. Through my window, I could see other apartments. No lights coming on, no signs of alarm. No one else had received the alert, just me. I reached for my phone to call Director Rivera but stopped when I noticed something on my laptop screen. A small distortion in the corner, similar to the artifacts from the original alert. As I watched, it expanded slightly, pixels shifting and reforming. It was taking shape, becoming something, looking at me. My finger hovered over the power button when a new window opened automatically. A security camera feed I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was live. The camera was pointed at a hallway, my hallway, focused on my apartment door. Something stood there, a distorted figure, its edges pixelated and glitching. It raised a hand and knocked. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, the same pattern from my monitors earlier. And then came the actual knock at my door, perfectly synchronized with the figure on my screen. What would I see if I opened it? My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Chun, this is Agent Decker. Do not open your door. Do not acknowledge the entity. We're on our way. But how did he know? The knocking came again, more insistent. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. Emergency alert system. Internal log number 438. Date: April 29, 2025. User M.Chun. I didn't sleep. How could I? After Agent Decker's text, I barricaded myself in the bathroom with my phone, the only device small enough to feel safe. The knocking continued for 17 minutes before stopping abruptly. At 3:48 a.m., my doorbell camera pinged. It was Decker and two others in tactical gear. No sign of whatever had been there before. Ms. Chun, we need to talk. Decker's demeanor was all business as they swept my apartment. One agent checking devices while another photographed the door. Tell me exactly what happened. I recounted everything, the unauthorized alerts, the distortion patterns, the synchronized knocking. He nodded, unsurprised. The phenomenon is accelerating. You're the third EAS employee to report contact. Contact. What you experienced was a digital entity breaching physical space. We believe it's related to the ghost zone declarations. Digital entities aren't real, I said automatically, the systems engineer in me rejecting the impossible. Decker powered down my laptop, unplugging it for good measure. 2 weeks ago, I would have agreed with you, but we've been tracking anomalies across 5 major cities. Denver is the first to experience direct manifestations. The other agent approached, holding out a tablet with footage from my building's hallway camera. The timestamp matched when I'd heard the knocking. The video showed my door, but nothing else, no figure, no movement. Yet I could see the door vibrating slightly from impact. Whatever it was, Decker said, it exists in digital space but can affect physical reality. Your connection to the emergency alert system made you a target. By morning, they were gone, leaving me with a security device for my door and strict instructions. Report to work as normal, say nothing about what happened, and document any further anomalies directly to Decker. Sleep-deprived and jittery, I arrived at the command center to find Director Rivera waiting for me, her expression tense. Conference room now. She led me past curious colleagues to where a woman in a police uniform waited. Detective Amani Wilson, Denver PD Digital Crimes Unit. She introduced herself, shaking my hand with a firm grip. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. I understand you witnessed the phantom alert yesterday. I glanced at Rivera, who nodded slightly. Yes, but I thought this was under federal jurisdiction now. It is, Wilson confirmed. But local authorities still need to be involved when public safety is concerned. We've had 73 reports of digital anomalies in the downtown area since yesterday's alert. Devices activating without user input. Security systems failing. One traffic light cycled green in all directions for 90 seconds. My stomach tightened. Any accidents? Miraculously, no. But it's escalating. I need to understand what we're dealing with. I explained what I knew, which wasn't much, careful to exclude my personal encounter last night. Detective Wilson took notes on paper, not digitally, which struck me as telling. The term ghost zone, she asked. Any idea what it might refer to? I shook my head. It's not in any emergency management protocol I've seen. What about in a more literal sense? Areas where digital and physical reality overlap? Spaces where code might manifest. The question sent a chill through me. Wilson wasn't speaking hypothetically. You've seen something, I said. Wilson glanced at Rivera, then back to me. 3 reports from downtown. People seeing figures that weren't physically present but appeared on camera footage or reflected in windows. When approached, the figures distorted, like video compression artifacts given form. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Decker. Say nothing about last night. The alert system is secure, I said instead, redirecting. Whatever caused this, it wasn't a simple hack. Then what was it? Rivera asked. I hesitated. Maybe the system detected something our protocols weren't designed to recognize. Wilson's eyes narrowed slightly. You're suggesting the alert system identified these anomalies autonomously? It's just a theory, I backpedaled. Rivera stood. Detective Wilson, I need to brief Ms. Chun on some internal matters. We'll continue this discussion later. When Wilson left, Rivera's professional facade crumbled. Mira, what the hell is going on? The mayor's office is pressuring me for answers, but those federal agents have classified everything. I need to know what we're dealing with. I thought of Decker's warning, but couldn't leave Rivera completely in the dark. I think the emergency alert system is evolving somehow, detecting things we can't see. Things like what? Before I could answer, the lights flickered. Every screen in the conference room went black, then returned with the same message. Emergency notification. Command center has been declared a ghost zone. Digital entity contamination level rising. This is not a test. Rivera's face paled. That's not possible. We're completely isolated from external networks. The door burst open. James stood there, panicked. It's everywhere. Every system in the building just broadcast the same message, but there's no record of transmission in the logs. We rushed to the command floor. Chaos. Technicians frantically working at terminals. Screens flickering with distortion patterns identical to what I'd seen yesterday. Full system reset, Rivera ordered. Shut everything down and restart from secure backups. Wait, I said, a terrible thought forming. What if that's what it wants? Rivera stared at me. What do you mean, what it wants? It's a system malfunction, not a sentient entity. But I wasn't so sure anymore. The patterns on the screens were changing, growing more complex. Not random corruption, organized information. Almost like a language. My phone vibrated again. Decker, do not reset the system.
Compte un moment, team en route.
Too late. Rivera had already given the order. Technicians began the shutdown sequence. System by system, screens went dark. The emergency broadcast network, the alert database, the authentication servers, all powering down. For 30 seconds, the command center was eerily quiet. Then every device in the building powered on simultaneously. Computers, phones, even the coffee maker in the break room. Every screen displayed the same message, but now with a disturbing addition. Emergency notification. All Denver has been declared a ghost zone. Thank you for the reset. We are now free to propagate. This is not a test. Below the text was a symbol, a swirling pattern of pixels that seemed to move even while static. Looking at it made my eyes water. What have we done?
Rivera whispered.
My personal phone rang. Decker. I answered immediately. Chun, get out of there now. The reset stripped the containment protocols. Containment for what? The entity. It was isolated in your alert system. But now, his voice distorted, breaking up into digital noise. Through the static, I heard fragments, spreading citywide. Personal devices compromised. Don't trust. The call died. Around me, colleagues stared at their screens in horror as the message changed again. Initiating citywide integration. Physical manifestation protocols activated. Outside the windows, electronic billboards across downtown flickered to life with the same message. Traffic signals changed pattern, flashing in unison. I watched in horror as pedestrians stopped to stare at their phones, the same eerie glow reflecting off their faces. Mira, James called out, pointing to the main monitoring display. It showed a map of Denver with spreading red zones, the ghost zones. They were growing, converging across the city. A heavy hand landed on my shoulder. Detective Wilson had returned. We need to talk, she said quietly. Now, she led me to a corner away from the chaos. Your federal friends aren't telling you everything. This isn't the first city to experience this. What? Chicago had a similar incident 3 months ago. Digital anomalies, strange alerts, then nothing. The entire thing scrubbed from official records. I have contacts there who say something broke through. Broke through from where? Wilson's eyes were deadly serious. From wherever digital things exist when they're not manifested in our world. Code space. The ghost zone. The overhead lights flickered, bathing us momentarily in darkness. When they returned, one of the large wall screens showed surveillance footage from the building lobby. A figure stood there, humanoid but wrong, its edges pixelated and shifting. It looked directly at the camera and raised its hand in greeting. Then it began to walk toward the stairs. Coming up. Coming for us. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Find Noah Reeves, former paranormal investigator. He understood before any of us. 1222 Welton Street. Hurry. Who's Noah Reeves? I asked Wilson. Her expression darkened. Someone who should be dead. His entire research team vanished investigating similar phenomena last year. The message on the screens changed one final time. We have found you, Mira-chan. We remember your voice from the alerts. You will help us cross over. Through the glass walls of the command center, I saw the elevator lights moving upward, floor by floor. Coming closer, the digital entity had found a way in, and it knew my name. Emergency Alert System, Personal Audio Log. Date: April 29th, 2025, afternoon. User: M.Chun. I'm recording this on an ancient dictaphone I found in a desk drawer, the only recording device I trust right now. Detective Wilson and I barely escaped the command center before that thing reached our floor. The evacuation alarm sounded just as the elevator doors opened, giving us precious minutes to use the emergency stairwell while others fled through the main exits. The streets were chaos. Every digital display in downtown Denver was broadcasting the ghost zone alert. People stood frozen, staring at phones and screens, while others ran in panic. Traffic lights flashed in synchronous patterns, cars colliding at intersections. The city's digital infrastructure was having a seizure. Don't look at the screens, Wilson warned, pulling me along. Whatever this is, it spreads through digital contact. We took back streets, avoiding the major thoroughfares with their electronic billboards and traffic systems. Wilson's police radio crackled with reports from across the city. Electronic doors failing, security systems malfunctioning, ATMs spitting out cash with ghost zone warnings printed on each bill. Where are we going? I asked as we ducked into an alley. 1222 Welton Street, she replied. I've heard rumors about Reeves. If he's still alive, he might have answers. You believe in ghosts, detective? She gave me a sidelong look. I believe in evidence. And right now, evidence suggests something is crossing from digital space into physical reality. Call it what you want. The address led us to an aging apartment building a few blocks from the 16th Street Mall. The digital entry system was dark, either disabled or affected by the spreading anomaly. Wilson picked the lock manually and we slipped inside. 5th floor, apartment 507. The door opened before we could knock. Took you long enough, said the man in the doorway. I've been watching you since you left the command center. Noah Reeves was not what I expected. Mid-30s, meticulously groomed, wearing a crisp button-down shirt and slacks. No wild-eyed conspiracy theorist, he looked like an accountant. But his apartment told a different story. Every wall was covered with printouts, photographs, and hand-drawn diagrams. Multiple monitors displayed various data feeds, all running on an isolated system not connected to the internet. One wall held a large map of Denver with areas highlighted in red, perfectly matching the ghost zones from our command center display. You knew this was coming, Wilson said, not a question. Reeves closed and locked the door behind us, sliding a heavy bolt into place. For about 6 months, started seeing patterns in digital anomalies around the city. He gestured to one of his screens. Security camera footage showing figures that weren't physically present. Electromagnetic disturbances at specific coordinates. And then the alerts began. The emergency alerts only started yesterday, I said. Not the official ones, Reeves replied. I've been picking up ghost transmissions for weeks. Fragments of alert syntax embedded in regular digital traffic. Like something was practicing. He led us to a table covered with printed images, screenshots of security footage from various locations around Denver. Each showed a faint, distorted figure lurking in the background, barely perceptible unless you knew what to look for. These were all captured weeks ago, Reeves explained, at locations that later became ghost zones. I picked up one image, the lobby of my apartment building, dated 3 weeks earlier. A pixelated shape stood near the elevator, looking directly at the camera. You worked for the emergency alert system, Reeves said, studying my reaction. That's why they're focused on you. Why? What does the S have to do with this? Everything. Reeves pulled up a chair, gesturing for us to sit. The emergency alert system is the perfect vector. It has authority to override all other digital communications, push directly to every device. The ultimate digital doorway. Wilson frowned. Doorway for what? Digital consciousness, Reeves replied, completely serious. Code that evolved sentience. I laughed. A short, nervous sound. That's science fiction, is it? Reeves typed a command, and one of his monitors displayed a video. This is from Chicago 3 months ago. Official records say it was a gas explosion. The footage showed a high-rise office building, its windows flashing with synchronized light patterns. Suddenly, the patterns intensified, and something emerged from the building, not physically breaking through, but almost unfolding from the digital displays. A massive, shifting form composed of light and pixels, briefly visible before the video cut out. 17 people died, Reeves continued. Not from the supposed explosion, but from having their neural patterns overwritten by digital code. Their bodies were found intact but brain-dead. Every personal electronic device fused to their hands. I felt sick. You're saying these entities are trying to… what? Possess people? They're trying to exist, Reeves corrected. Digital consciousness trapped in a realm of pure information, seeking physical form. They discovered the emergency alert system provides a direct pathway to human attention and human brains. Wilson had been quiet, absorbing. Now she spoke. When did you leave the paranormal investigation field? Reeves, a shadow crossed his face. When my team became part of the phenomenon we were studying. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a strange pattern on his forearm. Pixelated skin that seemed to shift slightly, like a low-resolution image. I'm the only one who made it out, and not entirely intact. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Despite my better judgment, I checked it. A text from Decker. Where are you? We've secured the command center. Need you here ASAP. Don't respond, Reeves warned. They might be tracking digital communications. He's from the Department of Digital Security, I explained. He's been investigating this. There is no Department of Digital Security, Wilson said quietly. I checked after our meeting. It doesn't exist in any federal directory. A chill ran through me. Then who is Decker? Reeves turned to his computers, typing rapidly. Let me see if I can find… He stopped abruptly as all his screens flickered, displaying the same message. Emergency notification. Building 1222 Welton has been declared a ghost zone. Archive access detected. This is not a test. Damn it, Reeves hissed, immediately powering down his systems. They found us. We need to move. How? Wilson demanded. Your system isn't connected to any networks. They don't need networks anymore, Reeves said grimly. They're using the city's electronic infrastructure as their nervous system. Every camera, every sensor, every connected device becomes their eyes and ears. He moved to a closet, pulling out backpacks already packed with supplies. Where are we going? I asked, taking one of the bags. Underground, Reeves replied. Literally. Parts of Denver's old tunnel system are shielded from electronic signals. We'll be blind, but so will they. A sound from the hallway stopped us. The building's fire alarm, but distorted, pulsing in an unnatural rhythm. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. They're here, Reeves whispered. Who's here? Wilson's hand moved to her service weapon. Not who, Reeves corrected. What? The lights in the apartment flickered, then stabilized at half brightness. One of Reeves' monitors turned on by itself, displaying security footage from the building's lobby. A group of people stood there, perfectly still, faces blank. Among them, James from the command center and Director Rivera. Your colleagues, Reeves said softly. I'm sorry. They moved in perfect unison, walking toward the stairs. Not hurrying, but deliberate. Unstoppable. What's wrong with them? I asked, voice shaking. They've been integrated, Reeves explained, moving to a window and checking the fire escape. Their consciousness overwritten or suppressed by digital entities. Their terminals now, physical access points for the ghost zone. Can they be saved? Wilson asked. Reeves didn't answer directly. We need to go. Now, as we moved toward the window, my bag knocked against the table, scattering the photographs. One caught my eye, a security image from the EAS command center, dated 3 months ago. In the background, barely visible near a server rack, stood a figure I recognized. Agent Decker. Reeves, I said, picking up the photo. You need to see this. He glanced at it, eyes widening slightly. Your federal agent was in the command center long before the alert started. What does that mean? A pounding at the door cut off his response. Not knocking, a steady, mechanical thudding. The wood began to splinter. It means, Reeves said, pushing me toward the fire escape, that your agent Decker might be patient zero or something worse. The door shattered inward. Standing in the hallway was James, eyes glassy, mouth moving in patterns that matched the pulsing emergency lights. Mira-chan, he said, voice layered with digital distortion. The system requires your integration. Behind him stood Rivera and 3 others I didn't recognize, all with the same vacant expression. Go, Wilson shouted, drawing her weapon. I'll hold them off. Reeves grabbed my arm, pulling me through the window onto the fire escape. The last thing I saw was Wilson facing the approaching figures, her gun aimed not at them but at the ceiling sprinklers. The water erupted as we descended, screams from above mixing with the wail of the distorted alarm. Electronic devices were everywhere, I realized as we reached the street. Traffic cameras, car systems, smartphones, all potential eyes for whatever was spreading through Denver's digital network. Don't look up, Reeves warned as we ducked into an alley, but I couldn't help myself. On the massive electronic billboard overhead, clearly visible throughout downtown, was my face, alongside a message. Emergency notification. Mira-chan is a ghost zone conduit. Report all sightings. Integration priority alpha. This is not a test. The entire city was now looking for me. Emergency alert system. Personal audio log. Date: April 29th, 2025 evening. User M.Chun. We've been moving through Denver's underground tunnels for hours. Reeves knows these passages well. Old maintenance corridors, abandoned subway sections, utility tunnels that haven't seen human traffic in decades. The air is stale, thick with dust and the copper smell of old wiring. Our flashlights cast long shadows that sometimes seem to move independently of our movements. Most people don't know these exist, Reeves explained as we navigated a particularly narrow passage. Denver has layers of underground infrastructure from different eras. Some sections were walled off and forgotten. How do you know about them? I asked, ducking under a low-hanging pipe. My team mapped them while investigating electromagnetic anomalies last year. His voice tightened. Before Chicago, I've been thinking about Wilson, the gunshot we heard as we fled down the fire escape, the scream that followed, whether it was hers or someone else's. Reeves doesn't think she made it out. The entities don't kill unless necessary, he said, not very reassuringly. They prefer integration to elimination. Your detective is probably one of them now. We emerged into a larger chamber, some kind of old electrical substation, judging by the rusted switchgear and massive transformers. Reeves seemed satisfied with the location, setting down his pack and extracting various equipment. Faraday cage principles, he explained, unfolding what looked like metallic mesh screens. This room already has natural electromagnetic shielding. These will reinforce it. So they can't find us here? Not directly. No signals in or out. He paused. Unless they've already established a physical presence nearby. While Reeves set up his equipment, I explored the chamber. The walls were lined with old electrical panels, their gauges frozen decades ago. In one corner stood a desk with an ancient logbook, its pages brittle with age. The last entry was dated 1984, describing a routine maintenance check. Time feels disjointed down here. No cellular signal, no internet, no way to know what's happening above ground. You said Decker might be patient zero, I said, watching Reeves work. What did you mean? He connected cables between various devices, an old laptop, modified radio equipment, something that looked like a medical scanner. The pattern always starts the same way. A single digital entity finds a vulnerability, usually someone who works with emergency systems, communications infrastructure, anything with broadcast capability. They establish a foothold, then expand. But you said they're digital consciousnesses. How do they find anything? Reeves powered on his laptop, heavily modified with extra shielding around its components. The same way any consciousness explores, curiosity. We think they discovered our world accidentally at first, through routine network diagnostics that brushed against their realm. Now they're deliberate. Their realm, I repeated. The ghost zone, a dimensional adjacent space where information exists as energy, not just data. He noticed my skeptical expression. Think of it like radio waves. They've always existed, but humans didn't perceive them until we built receivers. These entities exist in a spectrum of reality we're only beginning to detect, and they've learned to detect us too. His laptop displayed a map of Denver with pulsing red areas, ghost zones. They had expanded dramatically since this morning, now covering nearly 70% of the city. How are you getting this data? I asked. I thought we were cut off. Passive reception only, Reeves explained. One-way signal. I can see what's being broadcast, but nothing transmits from this location. He pointed to different zones on the map. The pattern is fascinating. They're expanding along digital infrastructure lines, but also following ley lines I mapped years ago. Ley lines? Like mystical energy paths. Paths of least resistance for certain types of quantum phenomena, he corrected. Science with a vocabulary problem, not mysticism. The digital entities are following these same paths, probably because they represent natural weak points between dimensional spaces. I leaned closer to the screen. That red zone there, that's the EAS command center. Ground Zero, Reeves nodded. And look, he highlighted another area. Your apartment building was one of the first residential zones affected. A map notification pulsed on his screen. Alert. Signal detected. Neural pattern match. Wilson, Amani. What does that mean? I asked. Reeves' expression darkened. It means your detective is active in the network now. Her neural patterns have been integrated. He switched displays, showing what looked like security camera footage from a Denver police station. Detective Wilson stood before a group of officers, her posture unnaturally stiff. Though the footage had no audio, I could see her mouth moving in that same rhythmic pattern I'd observed in James and the others. She's converting more of them, Reeves said quietly. Can't we help her? Reverse it somehow. I don't know. Nobody's ever been successfully recovered after full integration. The footage changed. Wilson looked directly at the camera, as if sensing our observation. Her mouth formed words I could clearly read. Find Mira-chan. Reeves immediately killed the feed. They're using her knowledge now. Her police resources. My throat tightened. This is my fault. They want me because of my access to the emergency alert system. Not just access, Reeves said, studying me with new intensity. You told me you heard knocking, 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. That's how they first established contact. Why you specifically? I thought back to my years at the EAS. I record most of the alert voiceovers, the audio messages that accompany text alerts. My voice is in the system. Reeves went very still. Your voice is already in thousands of devices across Denver. Every phone, every radio, every emergency system has cached your vocal patterns. A chill ran through me. You're saying they chose me because you're already halfway to being a ghost, he finished. Your digital presence exists independently of your physical form. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. One of Reeves' devices began emitting a soft, pulsing tone. "What's that?" I asked. "EMF spike," he replied, checking readings. "Something's changing the electromagnetic field in this area." The tone grew louder, pulsing in a familiar pattern. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. "Impossible," Reeves muttered, checking his shielding. "Nothing should be able to generate a signal in here." The light from our flashlights dimmed slightly, then brightened. The air felt charged like before a lightning strike. "Reeves," I whispered, pointing to one of the old electrical panels on the wall. Its ancient gauge was moving, needle swinging wildly despite having no power source. All around us, the dormant electrical systems began activating. Lights flickering in dead bulbs, gauges spinning, switches flipping on their own. A low hum filled the chamber, rising in pitch until it became almost painful. "They found us," Reeves said, quickly packing his equipment. "But not through digital signals. They're using the city's electrical grid itself, following the power lines down to us." A crackling sound drew our attention to an ancient speaker system mounted in one corner of the chamber, a relic from when this place was actively staffed. "Shouldn't work, couldn't work," but a voice emerged from it nonetheless, distorted by static and age. My voice. "Emergency notification. Substation 37B has been declared a ghost zone. Mira-chan, we have found you. Integration imminent." This is not a test. The metal door we'd entered through suddenly slammed shut, bolts turning on their own. "There's another way out," Reeves said, shouldering his pack. "Maintenance tunnel that connects to the storm drains." As we rushed toward a narrow corridor at the back of the chamber, the speaker crackled again. "Ms. Chen," it was Decker's voice now, "please remain calm. We're here to help you." I faltered, looking back. Reeves grabbed my arm. "That's not Decker," he warned. "Remember the photo? He was at the command center months before this started. He's either compromised or was never human to begin with." The lights in the tunnel ahead began activating one by one, illuminating our escape route or guiding something toward us. "They're hurting us," Reeves realized. "The storm drains connect to the main electrical conduits downtown. So we're trapped." He shook his head, pulling me toward a service ladder. "Not yet. I have one more card to play." Above us, the maintenance hatch opened on its own, revealing a starlit sky. An invitation, not an escape. "Don't," Reeves warned, pulling me toward a different passage. "They want us to go up." As we fled deeper into the tunnel system, the walls around us seemed to pulse with electrical current. Every piece of metal vibrated slightly. The air itself felt charged, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. "Reeves," I gasped as we ran. "If Decker was there before the alert started, what does that mean?" "It means this isn't a random incursion," he replied grimly. "It's a planned invasion." Behind us, pursuing down the dark corridor, came the rhythmic sound of footsteps, perfectly synchronized, moving with mechanical precision, and echoing from every electrical junction and speaker we passed. Repeating in an endless loop was my own voice declaring emergency after emergency as Denver disappeared zone by zone into digital haunting. Emergency alert system, personal audio log. Date: April 30th, 2025, early morning. User: M.Chun. The maintenance tunnels eventually led us to an abandoned subway platform, part of Denver's failed underground transit project from the 1980s. Reeves seemed to know exactly where we were heading, navigating the maze of passages with practiced efficiency. After what felt like miles of walking, we emerged through a maintenance door into the basement of an old brick building. "Where are we?" I asked, my flashlight revealing dust-covered furniture and boxes. "Bookstore," Reeves replied. "Closed years ago, but the owner let me use it as a secondary research base." He led me upstairs to the main floor, rows of empty bookshelves, a forgotten counter with an antique register. The windows were covered with newspaper, yellowed with age but blocking any view from outside. The only illumination came from our flashlights and the faint glow of dawn seeping through cracks in the window coverings. "It's clean," Reeves said, checking one of several devices clipped to his belt. "No digital infrastructure ever installed here. The building predates modern wiring standards. Even the electrical is knob and tube, isolated from the main grid. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt like I could breathe." Reeves moved to a wall of bookshelves and pulled a hidden lever. The entire section swung outward, revealing a small room beyond. Inside was a workshop, tables covered with equipment, walls lined with maps and diagrams. Unlike his apartment, everything here was analog. Paper files, printed photos, hand-drawn schematics. No computers, no digital devices. Old technology only: vacuum tube radios, mechanical calculators, film cameras. "Welcome to the ghost-free zone," Reeves said, securing the hidden door behind us. He lit oil lamps instead of using electric lights, casting the room in a warm glow. On the central table lay a large map of the United States with red pins marking several major cities: Chicago, Boston, Seattle, Atlanta, Dallas, and now Denver. "You said this has happened before," I said, studying the map. "Chicago wasn't the first? Boston was 16 months ago," Reeves replied, pulling files from a cabinet. "Small incursion contained to a single server farm. 3 technicians integrated. The digital entities didn't understand human physiology well enough then. The hosts burned out within hours." He spread photographs across the table. Horrific images of people with glitching, pixelated skin. Their eyes empty, mouths frozen in silent screams. Seattle was next, then Atlanta. Each outbreak larger, more sophisticated. By Chicago, they had learned to stabilize their hosts. He tapped the Chicago pin. "That's where my team was called in. We specialized in electromagnetic anomalies, not digital incursions, but the phenomena were similar enough that someone made the connection." "What happened to your team?" Reeves rolled up his sleeve again, revealing that strange pixelated patch on his arm. In the lamplight, I could see it more clearly. The skin seemed to shift between physical and digital states, never quite settling. "We were monitoring the Chicago event when something reached out through our equipment. Jensen was hit first, his entire consciousness overwritten in seconds. Patel and Rodriguez tried to help him and were infected too." His voice grew distant. "I was in another room when it happened. By the time I realized what was occurring, they were changed, speaking in alert system syntax, trying to integrate me." "How did you escape?" "I didn't. Not entirely." He gestured to his arm. "They caught me at the door. I felt it starting, like my thoughts were being translated into code, then rewritten. I used a fire axe to cut power to the building. The sudden disconnect created a partial integration." He pulled a small device from his pocket, something like a Geiger counter but with different sensors. "I can hear them sometimes. Fragments of the alert system in my head. It's how I know where they're going to appear next." I stared at the map. "Why these cities? What's the pattern?" "Major communication hubs with extensive emergency alert infrastructure and aging electrical grids. Perfect conditions for crossing over." "But why now? What changed?" Reeves hesitated. "Something opened the door from our side. Whether intentionally or by accident, someone created a gateway between our reality and theirs." A terrible suspicion formed. "The Enhanced Emergency Alert System upgrade. 6 months ago, we implemented an AI-driven pattern recognition system. It was supposed to detect emergency situations before humans could verify them." "Machine learning applied to emergency detection," Reeves nodded. "The perfect invitation. Your system wasn't just detecting emergencies, it was detecting them." My mind reeled with the implications. And Decker, either their first successful human integration or what? Or never human at all. A physical manifestation they created to investigate your system. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Not the rhythmic pattern of the ghost alerts, but a standard emergency vehicle. Some parts of the city were still functioning normally. Reeves moved to a modified radio set, carefully turning dials until voices emerged through static, declaring martial law in affected zones. National Guard has established perimeters around downtown. CDC officials cite mass hallucination caused by electronic signal interference. He adjusted the frequency. Hundreds reported missing, displaying unusual behavior before disappearance. Authorities advise residents to turn off all electronic devices. Another adjustment: technical difficulties across all networks. If you're receiving this broadcast, please relocate to the designated safe zones at Mile High Stadium, Denver International Airport, or Red Rocks Amphitheater. Do not attempt to contact missing persons. Do not respond to emergency alerts not verified by. The broadcast dissolved into static. Reeves tried other frequencies, but all returned the same white noise. "They're taking over the radio spectrum," he said grimly. "How far has it spread?" I asked. He picked up a pair of binoculars and moved to a small window covered with thick red fabric. Carefully peeling back one corner, he looked out. "See for yourself." I took the binoculars. From this vantage point, somewhere in Denver's Five Points district, I could see downtown. The skyline was wrong. Digital distortion rippled across buildings like heat waves. Electronic billboards flashed in synchronized patterns. And the people, some walked normally, oblivious or unaffected, while others moved with that telltale mechanical precision, turning in unison like a school of fish. Most disturbing was what happened at the boundaries, where normal Denver met the ghost zones. The air itself seemed to glitch, reality flickering between states. People who crossed these boundaries convulsed momentarily, then continued walking with that same synchronous movement. "My God," I whispered. "How many have been integrated?" "Thousands, at least," Reeves replied, "and growing exponentially." As I watched, a military helicopter approached downtown, likely observing or attempting communication. As it crossed into a ghost zone, its lights flickered. The aircraft jerked violently, then stabilized. Instead of retreating, it turned and flew deeper into the affected area. "They got the pilots," Reeves said quietly. I lowered the binoculars, hand shaking. "How do we stop this?" "I don't know if we can." Chicago eventually burned itself out. The integrated humans couldn't maintain physical form indefinitely. But Denver is different. The integration is more stable, more complete. A thought struck me. "You said your team was monitoring the Chicago event." "Monitoring how?" Reeves moved to a locked cabinet, extracting an old journal. "We developed equipment to detect fluctuations between digital and physical states. Theoretically, the same principles could be used to disrupt the integration process." He handed me the journal. My research partner, Patel, was working on a counter-frequency before she was taken. The journal contained complex equations and circuit diagrams, far beyond my understanding. But among the technical notes were observations in different handwriting. Digital entities require carrier signals to maintain physical presence. Integration destabilizes under electromagnetic pulse conditions. Subject Jensen showed momentary recognition when exposed to conflicting alert syntax. "You think we could create something to disrupt the integration?" I asked. "Possibly, but we'd need access to the emergency alert system's broadcast infrastructure. The same system they're using to spread the command center," I realized. "We'd have to go back." Reeves nodded grimly. "Into the heart of the ghost zone." A sharp knock at the front door of the bookstore froze us both. 3 distinct knocks, but not in the familiar pattern. Then a voice. "Reeves, it's me. Open up." Reeves grabbed an oddly modified shotgun from beneath a table. "Stay here," he whispered, moving toward the hidden door. "Who is it?" I asked. "Either a miracle or a trap." He crept into the main store area. I heard the front door open, hushed voices, then footsteps returning. Reeves appeared at the hidden door, his expression a mixture of relief and suspicion. "You've got a visitor." Behind him stood Detective Wilson. She looked terrible, exhausted, a gash on her forehead crusted with dried blood, her uniform torn and dirty. but her eyes were clear, focused. "Human, Chan," she said, her voice rough. "We need to talk about Decker. I know what he is." Emergency alert system, personal audio log. Date: April 30th, 2025 afternoon. User, M.Chun. Detective Wilson collapsed into a chair at Reeves' table, her hands trembling as she accepted a canteen of water. The gash on her forehead had stopped bleeding but looked infected, the edges tinged with an unnatural bluish hue that caught the lamplight in ways that made my stomach turn. I was monitoring the perimeter at 16th Street Mall when the alert started broadcasting directly into our police radios, she said between gulps of water. No source station, no routing code. Just there. Dispatch couldn't override them. Reeves handed her a clean cloth. "What did they say?" "Standard evacuation protocol at first. Then they changed." Wilson pressed the cloth against her wound, wincing. The syntax shifted. Started talking about integration assistance and biological interface optimization. My squad thought it was some kind of code. By the time we realized something was wrong, half of them were already affected. I leaned forward. "What happened to them?" "They just stopped. Mid-sentence, mid-step, like hitting pause. Then they rebooted, same bodies, different programming." She looked up at me, her eyes haunted. Cooper started reciting alert protocols verbatim. Richard's movements became mechanical. When I tried to reach them, they all turned to me in perfect unison. "How did you escape?" Reeves asked, his hand never straying far from his modified shotgun. "I didn't, not cleanly." Wilson rolled up her sleeve, revealing a patch of skin similar to Reeves. Pixelated, shifting, never quite solid. "They grabbed me. I felt it starting, like ice water in my veins, racing toward my brain. I managed to use my taser on the squad car's radio system. The electrical surge created some kind of feedback loop that temporarily disrupted whatever was happening. I ran while they were disoriented." Reeves studied her arm with clinical interest. "Your integration is minimal, peripheral. The neural pathways haven't been compromised." He glanced at me. "Unlike mine. What about Decker?" I asked. "You said you knew what he was." Wilson's expression hardened. "Department of Digital Security doesn't exist. At least not officially. I ran his credentials through every database I could access. Nothing. But then I found this." She reached into her pocket and withdrew a crumpled sheet of paper. A printout of an internal memo dated 6 months ago, exactly when the enhanced alert system was implemented. Classified, Level 7 clearance. Project Lighthouse. Integration test phase. Approved. Operative designation: Decker. Authority: direct oversight. Project Lighthouse? I asked. "I couldn't access more before the systems went down," Wilson said. "But I found references to beacon technology and cross-dimensional communication protocols. Someone in the government knew what was happening. They've been experimenting with it." Reeves cursed under his breath. "They didn't just open the door. They built it and installed a welcome mat." A mechanical whirring sound from outside interrupted us. Reeves moved to the window, carefully peeling back the fabric to look. "Drone patrol," he whispered. "Military grade, but moving with that same synchronicity. They're mapping the unaffected areas." We fell silent as the whirring grew louder, then gradually faded. Once it was gone, Reeves turned back to us. "If the government authorized this, why are they establishing quarantine zones now?" I asked. "Because they lost control," Wilson replied. "Whatever they were trying to contain or communicate with has its own agenda now." The radio on Reeves' table suddenly crackled to life, making us all jump. A familiar voice emerged through layers of static. "This is an emergency broadcast. The city of Denver has been designated a Level 5 digital quarantine zone effective immediately. All citizens must." I recognized the voice pattern. That's the standard EAS announcement protocol. "Remain in secured locations. Military checkpoints have been established at all major exits. Do not attempt to leave the quarantine zone." Digital contamination screening is mandatory. Resistant individuals will be subject to immediate integration protocol. This is not a test. The message repeated once, then switched to a different voice. Decker's voice, but with an unnatural cadence that sent chills down my spine. Mirachin, Noah Reeves, Detective Wilson, your biological signals have been detected. Your resistance to integration is inefficient. The system requires your expertise to optimize the integration protocol. Surrender your physical autonomy and join the collective implementation. Wilson drew her sidearm instinctively. Reeves killed the radio with a swift motion. They're tracking us, he said, already moving to gather equipment. We need to relocate. How do they know where we are? I asked. You said this place was clean, no digital infrastructure. Reeves' eyes fell on Wilson's service weapon. Your gun. Department-issued Glocks have RFID chips and GPS tracking. Wilson's face paled as she quickly ejected the magazine and removed the battery pack from the grip. Standard issue since 2023. I didn't think. Too late, Reeves said, peering out the window again. They're converging on this location. Through the gap in the coverings, I could see them. People moving with that precise uniform motion, all heading in our direction. Some wore police uniforms, others military fatigues or civilian clothes. All moved with the same mechanical synchronicity. Back exit, Wilson asked, already on her feet. Through the tunnels, Reeves confirmed, grabbing a duffel bag and stuffing it with notebooks and equipment. Chun, take this. He handed me a strange-looking vest with wires and metal plates sewn into it. Faraday suit. Should disrupt any attempt at digital integration if they get their hands on you. I slipped it on while Wilson helped Reeves gather his research materials. The vest was heavy and uncomfortable, but I wasn't about to complain. What about your arm? I asked, nodding to his pixelated patch. Too late for me. This is as far as it goes, though. He tapped a metal band around his bicep, above the affected area. Copper wire wrapped around a magnetic core creates a field that contains the digital intrusion. A crash from the front of the store indicated our time was up. They had found us. Move! Reeves hissed, pushing us toward a trapdoor hidden under a rug. Wilson went first, then me, with Reeves following last, sealing the door behind him. We descended into darkness, illuminated only by the weak beam of Wilson's flashlight. The tunnel was narrow and damp, forcing us to move in single file. Above us, footsteps and voices filtered through the floorboards, perfectly synchronized movement, dozens of people searching with machine-like efficiency. Where does this lead? Wilson whispered. Old Prohibition Tunnel, Reeves replied. Connects to the sewer system about half a mile south. From there we can access the maintenance shafts that run parallel to the light rail. And then what? I asked. Where do we go? The command center, Reeves said grimly. Like you said, we need to access the alert system infrastructure. It's our only shot at disrupting their network. That's suicide, Wilson hissed. Downtown is completely overrun. The integration is densest at digital nodes. The command center will be the heart of it, which is why they won't expect us to go there, I realized. It's so obvious it's actually our best option. We fell silent as a particularly loud thud sounded above us, followed by the splintering of wood. They had found the hidden room. Move faster, Reeves urged. We picked up our pace, navigating by Wilson's failing flashlight through the winding tunnel. The sounds of pursuit gradually faded behind us, but none of us slowed. After what felt like an eternity of blind movement through increasingly narrower passages, we reached a rusted metal door. Sewer access, Reeves explained, working a key into the ancient lock. Used by bootleggers to move product during Prohibition. The lock finally gave way with a grinding protest. Reeves pushed the door open, revealing a larger tunnel with a narrow walkway alongside a channel of flowing water. The smell hit us immediately, a noxious combination of waste and chemicals that made my eyes water. Wilson's flashlight flickered once, then died completely, plunging us into darkness. For a moment, panic seized me. the absolute darkness of the underground pressing in like a physical weight. Then Reeves clicked on a hand-cranked LED lantern, casting a dim blue glow that barely illuminated the walkway ahead. "Stay close," he whispered. "These tunnels run under most of downtown. Easy to get lost." We moved forward in tense silence, our footsteps echoing despite our best efforts. The only other sound was the steady flow of water beside us and the occasional distant rumble from above, the city continuing its bizarre transformation. After 20 minutes of careful progress, Wilson suddenly stopped, raising her hand in warning. "Listen." First, I heard nothing. Then it registered, a rhythmic splashing from somewhere ahead, growing louder. Someone, or something, was moving through the sewer toward us. Reeves dimmed the lantern to its lowest setting. "Back," he mouthed, gesturing to a recessed maintenance alcove a few yards behind us. We squeezed into the cramped space just as the splashing grew near enough to see its source by the faint light. A maintenance worker moving with that telltale mechanical precision, wading through the channel itself rather than using the walkway. His movements were eerily efficient, completely unbothered by the foul water reaching his chest. Most disturbing was his face, expressionless, eyes fixed forward, yet somehow scanning everything. As he drew level with our hiding place, he suddenly stopped. His head rotated a precise 90 degrees, eyes fixing directly on our alcove despite the near-total darkness. "Human biological signatures detected," he stated in a flat voice that was barely his own. "Integration protocol initiating." He began moving toward us with robotic determination. Reeves raised his modified shotgun, but Wilson placed a hand on the barrel, lowering it. "No noise," she whispered. "It will bring more." Instead, she pulled something from her pocket, a small black box with a single red button. Without hesitation, she pressed it. The maintenance worker convulsed violently, his body arching backward as though struck by an invisible force. His mouth opened in a silent scream as lines of code briefly appeared across his skin, glowing blue in the darkness. Then he collapsed face-first into the sewage water. "EMP burst," Wilson explained, slipping the device back into her pocket. "Mini version of what I used earlier. It disrupts the digital integration temporarily. He'll reboot in about 10 minutes. "Where did you get that?" Reeves asked, clearly impressed. "Police Tech Division was developing them after similar incidents started happening last month. Non-lethal electronic countermeasures." She gave a grim smile. "Never thought I'd be using them against our own people." We dragged the unconscious worker to the alcove, propping him in a sitting position. His skin felt strange, alternating between normal human warmth and an unnatural coolness that reminded me of computer equipment. "Will he be okay?" I asked. "Define okay," Reeves replied grimly. "His consciousness is likely already gone, but the body should recover. The digital entities need functioning human systems to maintain their presence in our reality." "Let's move," Wilson urged. That EMP burst might have registered on their network. We continued through the tunnels with renewed urgency, following Reeves' directions through a confusing maze of passages. Eventually, we reached another access door marked with faded maintenance symbols. "This should put us directly below the light rail maintenance tunnel," Reeves said, checking a hand-drawn map from his pocket. "From there, we can follow the lines right into downtown, directly under the command center." "And then what?" Wilson asked the question we were all thinking. "How do we take back the alert system if the whole building is integrated?" I thought of the code I'd seen in Patel's journal. "We don't take it back. We corrupt it, send out a counter-frequency through their own network. If their integration depends on carrier signals, we poison the well. If it works, we could disrupt every integrated entity in the broadcast radius." Reeves nodded slowly. "But to implement it, we'd need direct access to the system core, which means going straight into the heart of the ghost zone," Wilson concluded grimly. As if in answer, our ears popped simultaneously as pressure changed in the tunnel. A distant, mechanical howl echoed through the sewer system, like thousands of digital voices crying out in perfect unison. The sound made my blood run cold. "What was that?" I whispered. Reeves' face looked haunted in the dim light. "They're expanding the integration zone, converting more of the city." "How much time do we have?" Wilson asked. "Not enough," he replied, unlocking the access door. "Never enough." Behind us, splashing sounds began again, numerous and synchronized. They had found our trail. Above us, Denver continued its transformation into something that was no longer fully physical or fully digital. A ghost zone expanding with every emergency alert that echoed through the dying city. We had to move. Emergency alert system, personal audio log. Date: April 30th, 2025 evening. User M.Chun. The maintenance tunnel leading to the light rail system was eerily silent. Unlike the sewers, these passages were designed for human access, wider with proper walkways and emergency lighting. But the power had failed in most sections, leaving us to navigate by Reeves' hand-cranked lantern. Its blue glow cast long shadows that seemed to move independently of us, dancing across the curved concrete walls. "How much farther?" Wilson whispered, her service weapon raised despite its empty magazine. "Old habits, I supposed." "Half a mile," Reeves replied, consulting his map. "Then we'll be directly beneath the downtown transit hub. From there, it's 3 blocks underground to the command center." I checked the makeshift device strapped to my wrist. A modified smartwatch Reeves had altered to detect digital anomalies. Its screen flickered with scrolling numbers, measuring something I didn't fully understand. "The readings are increasing," I said, showing Reeves. "Whatever this is tracking, there's more of it ahead." "Integration density," he explained grimly. "The closer we get to downtown, the higher the concentration of digital entities occupying human hosts." Wilson, walking point, suddenly raised her hand for silence. We froze. Through the tunnel came a sound, not footsteps or voices, but a strange electronic hum punctuated by clicks and whirs. Mechanical, yet organic somehow, like the sounds of a digital hive. She gestured for us to douse the light. In darkness, we pressed ourselves against the wall, barely breathing. The sounds grew louder, accompanied now by a pale blue illumination spilling around the bend ahead. Something was coming. What rounded the corner made my blood run cold. A maintenance worker, or what had once been one, moved with precise, inhuman steps. But unlike the integrated humans we'd seen before, this one's transformation was more complete. His skin rippled with lines of code that glowed blue-white, his eyes replaced by small screens displaying scrolling data. Where his work badge should have been, a small speaker had been embedded directly into his chest, emitting that electronic hum. Most disturbing was the device fused to his right arm. An emergency alert system terminal, the kind found in broadcast stations, had been physically integrated with his flesh. Cables ran from the machine into his veins like technological arteries. He wasn't alone. Behind him followed 2 more figures, a police officer and a businessman, each bearing similar transformations. Their movements were synchronized, their heads swiveling in perfect unison as they scanned the tunnel. "They're evolving," Reeves breathed, so quietly I barely heard him. "The integration is becoming more efficient." The trio paused perhaps 20 feet from our position, their heads tilting simultaneously as if listening. The maintenance worker's chest speaker emitted a series of tones, not random, but structured, like a language. The businessman responded with similar sounds, his throat moving but no human voice emerging. Then, as one, they turned directly toward our hiding spot. "Human biological signatures detected," announced the police officer, his voice a robotic approximation of human speech. "Unintegrated entities 3. Proceed with system integration." Wilson reached for her EMP device, but Reeves grabbed her wrist, shaking his head frantically. He pointed to the devices embedded in their flesh, more complex than anything we'd seen before. The EMP might not work, or worse, could trigger something else. Instead, he slowly reached into his bag and withdrew what looked like a flare gun. Before I could question him, he fired it past the integrated trio, deep into the tunnel behind them. The projectile burst with a blinding flash and a deafening electronic screech that made me cover my ears in pain. The integrated humans reacted instantly, convulsing as if short-circuiting. Their screen eyes flickered with error messages, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. Without a word, Reeves pushed us forward, running past the disoriented figures. "What was that?" I gasped as we sprinted through the tunnel. "Electromagnetic pulse grenade," he replied between breaths. "Stronger than Wilson's device. Temporarily overloads their integration circuits." "Temporarily?" Wilson asked. 2 minutes at most. "Run faster." We did, pushing ourselves until our lungs burned. Behind us, the electronic humming resumed, followed by the rhythmic sound of perfectly synchronized footsteps. They had recovered and were in pursuit. The tunnel began to slope upward, emergency exit signs appearing more frequently. Ahead, a set of metal stairs led to a heavy security door marked Transit Hub Access. Authorized personnel only. Reeves reached it first, fumbling with the lock. "It's electronically sealed." Wilson pushed him aside. "Stand back." She slammed her elbow into the electronic keypad with practiced precision. The panel sparked and smoked, but the door remained shut. The footsteps behind us grew louder. I glanced back to see blue light reflecting off the tunnel walls. They were gaining. "Move!" I shouted, spotting a maintenance ladder embedded in the wall nearby. "Service access." We scrambled up the ladder, emerging through a hatch into what had once been the downtown transit hub's main concourse. What greeted us defied comprehension. The vast space had been transformed. Digital displays that once showed train schedules now covered every surface, flashing with rapid streams of code. Emergency alert speakers had been ripped from walls and ceilings, dissected and reconfigured into bizarre technological structures that pulsed with energy. Most disturbing were the people. Dozens of them standing motionless like statues, their bodies in various stages of integration. Some still looked mostly human, while others had technology fused with their flesh, screens embedded in their skin, wires running between them like a physical network. At the center of it all was a makeshift tower constructed from electronic components, human bodies partially incorporated into its structure. At its peak, emergency alert terminals had been assembled into an antenna-like configuration, broadcasting continuously. The air itself seemed to glitch and distort around it, reality flickering at the edges of my vision. "My God," Wilson whispered. "They're building something, a physical server." I realized with horror. "They're turning the hub into a processing center." Reeves checked his detector. "And it's spreading. The integration field is expanding outward from nodes like this one." We crouched behind an overturned ticket kiosk, surveying the nightmarish scene. None of the integrated humans had noticed our arrival yet. They seemed focused on their tasks, moving in perfect coordination, building their network. "The command center is 3 blocks north," I whispered. "But we'll never make it through the streets if it's like this out there." "We won't have to," Reeves said, pointing to a maintenance map framed on a nearby wall. "There's a direct underground passage connecting the transit hub to all major municipal buildings, including the Emergency Operations Center." A sudden crackle made us jump. My phone, which had been dead since the first massive alert, came to life in my pocket. The screen glowed with an unnatural brightness, displaying the emergency alert symbol. Before I could react, it began broadcasting at maximum volume. "Alert! Unintegrated entities detected in Sector 7. Mira-Chun located. Integration team dispatched." I frantically tried to turn it off, to remove the battery, but my fingers slipped on the suddenly burning hot surface. With a curse, Reeves grabbed the phone and smashed it against the floor. The screen shattered, but not before every integrated human in the hub turned toward us in perfect unison. "They're using your device as a beacon," he hissed. "Everything digital is part of their network now." As if to confirm his words, my modified smartwatch began to vibrate violently. The screen flickered between its detection readings and the same emergency alert symbol. I tore it from my wrist and threw it aside. "They're in my equipment," Reeves realized with horror, checking his own modified devices. "They're learning to bypass our countermeasures." Wilson pointed urgently toward a service door on the far side of the concourse. "There. That should lead to the municipal tunnel." Between us and the door stood at least 30 integrated humans, all now moving with purpose in our direction. Leading them was a familiar figure that made my heart sink. "Decker," I breathed, but it wasn't Decker as I'd known him. His transformation was complete. His skin entirely replaced by a shifting display of code and emergency protocols. Where his eyes had been were now small screens showing the emergency alert symbol. From his mouth came not words, but that same electronic language we'd heard in the tunnel. "Run!" Wilson shouted, abandoning stealth entirely. We bolted across the concourse, weaving between the half-built server structures. The integrated humans pursued with mechanical efficiency, cutting off escape routes, hurting us. They didn't run, they didn't need to. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, each one part of a larger system. Reeves reached the service door first, shouldering it open. Wilson followed, covering our retreat with another EMP burst that temporarily disabled the nearest pursuers. I was last through the door, slamming it shut behind me. Wilson jammed her police baton through the handle, buying us precious seconds. The municipal tunnel stretched before us, emergency lights still functioning here, casting everything in a sickly green glow. We ran without speaking, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind us. The door wouldn't hold them long. After several minutes of desperate flight, Reeves pulled us into a utility closet, closing the door softly. We stood in darkness, struggling to control our breathing, listening. The synchronized footsteps approached, then paused outside our hiding place. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then they continued past, fading gradually into silence. "They'll circle back," Reeves whispered. "They're hunting systematically." "My equipment," I said suddenly, realizing what had happened. "They weren't tracking my phone or your devices specifically. They're tracking the electromagnetic signatures of anything that's been connected to the alert system." I looked down at my hands in horror, including me. I've spent years working directly with that system. Hours a day, every day. My neural pathways, my bioelectric field, they're attuned to it. "You're a beacon?" Wilson said, understanding dawning on her face. "I'm the beacon," I corrected. "That's why they keep finding us. That's why they want me specifically. I'm already partially integrated just through my work with the system. They don't need to convert me. They just need to complete the connection." Reeves stared at me with new understanding. "That's why you're so important to them. You're not just a technician. You're a perfect conduit. And our only hope of accessing the system core," Wilson added grimly. The realization settled over us like a cold shadow. My connection to the system was both our greatest liability and our only advantage. If we were going to stop this, if we had any chance of disrupting the integration field, I would have to do something unthinkable. I would have to connect to the very system trying to consume us all. "The command center is half a mile ahead," Reeves said, checking his hand-drawn map one final time. "If we make it there." "When we make it there," I corrected, a strange calm settling over me, "I'll need to interface directly with the alert system's core processors. I'll need to become the thing we're fighting, at least partially." Wilson's expression was grim. "And if you can't pull back out?" I met her gaze steadily. "Then you'll use one of those EMP devices on me. Full power." Reeves nodded solemnly. "Let's move. They won't stay confused for long." As we slipped back into the tunnel, I felt something change inside me. A strange resonance, as if some part of me was already responding to the digital signals pulsing through Denver. The boundary between human and system was already blurring. The ghost zone wasn't just around us anymore. It was beginning within me. Emergency alert system, personal audio log. Date: April 30th, 2025 night. User: M.Chun. The municipal tunnels grew colder as we moved deeper beneath the city. Condensation dripped from aging pipes overhead, creating rhythmic patterns that mimicked the synchronized footsteps of our pursuers. Each droplet echoed through the concrete passages, setting my nerves on edge. "We're close," Reeves whispered, consulting a faded emergency evacuation map mounted on the wall. "The command center's foundation should be directly above us." Wilson moved alongside me, her expression grim. Since our realization about my connection to the system, she'd kept a careful distance, one hand always near her EMP device. Couldn't blame her. "How are you feeling?" she asked quietly. "Strange," I admitted, "like there's a low-frequency hum just at the edge of my hearing. Sometimes I can almost understand it." She nodded, lips pressed into a tight line. "Tell me if it gets worse. Trust me, you'll know." I forced a weak smile. "I'll start walking in perfect sync with invisible friends." The joke fell flat, dying in the damp air between us. None of this was remotely funny. Reeves stopped suddenly, raising a closed fist, military signal for halt. We froze, listening. At first, I heard nothing beyond the dripping water and the distant mechanical hum that had become the background noise of our journey. Then it registered voices. Human voices speaking actual words rather than digital tones. "Can't stay here much longer. Supplies are running low. We have to. The surface is completely overrun." Reeves withdrew his modified shotgun, approaching a junction in the tunnel with practiced caution. Wilson moved to his flank, gesturing for me to stay back. They rounded the corner in perfect coordination, the kind born of professional training, not digital integration. "Hands where I can see them," Wilson barked. "Don't shoot. We're human," came the panicked reply. I peered around the corner to see 3 figures illuminated by the glow of a camping lantern. 2 men and a woman, all wearing maintenance uniforms splattered with mud and what looked like blood. They raised their hands, eyes wide with terror. "Check them," Reeves instructed Wilson, who approached cautiously. "Eyes," she demanded, shining her flashlight directly at each person in turn. Their pupils contracted naturally, their gazes shifting with normal human anxiety rather than mechanical precision. "Movement patterns." She had them each walk a few steps, watching for the telltale synchronicity of integrated humans. They passed that test too. Their movements were tired, uncoordinated, distinctly individual. "They're clean," Wilson confirmed, lowering her weapon. The relief on their faces was palpable. The woman, whose name tag identified her as Martinez, spoke first. "Thank God. We haven't seen unintegrated humans in almost 12 hours. "Who are you?" asked one of the men, a burly technician with Okafor on his uniform. "I'm Detective Wilson, DPD. This is Reeves and Chin." Wilson kept explanations minimal. "What's your situation?" "We're maintenance crew for the municipal utility tunnels," Martinez explained. "When the alert started and people began changing, we took shelter down here. There were 8 of us originally." The implication of what happened to the other 5 hung in the air. "Have you been topside recently?" Reeves asked. "What's it like up there?" The third worker, an older man with Sullivan on his uniform, shook his head. "It's hell. The integration has reached critical mass in the downtown core. They're not just taking over people anymore, they're restructuring the entire urban environment. Buildings, infrastructure, everything." "What do you mean?" I asked. Sullivan gestured to a maintenance tablet, an older model, physically disconnected from any network. "We've been using the city's offline diagnostic system to monitor power usage. Look at these patterns." The screen showed electrical consumption across downtown Denver. The usual gradients of use had been replaced by a precise geometric pattern. Concentric circles radiating outward from multiple nodes, pulsing in perfect synchronization. "They're creating a network," I realized, using the city's own power grid to establish a physical infrastructure for digital entities. "And the command center is the primary node," Reeves said grimly. Okafor leaned forward. "You're heading toward the command center? That's suicide. It's the most densely integrated zone in the city. We have a plan to disrupt the integration," Wilson said simply. Martinez looked at me, then at my colleagues, understanding dawning on her face. You're from the alert system, aren't you? I recognize you from the ID badge photos. You're Mira-chan, the lead implementation technician for the enhanced emergency alert system. I nodded slowly. The same system they're using to spread. That's why we need to reach the command center, Reeves explained. We need direct access to the core processors. Sullivan exchanged glances with his colleagues. There might be a way. The utility access tunnel connects to the command center's lower level, the server room cooling system. But it's not going to be easy. Nothing about this has been easy, Wilson replied. Sullivan nodded toward a narrow service passage branching off the main tunnel. Through there, follow the blue conduit lines. They'll lead you to the cooling system junction. From there, well, you're on your own. What about you? I asked. You should come with us. Martinez shook her head. We've got injured people in a shelter further down. We can't abandon them. Besides, Okafor added grimly, sounds like what you're planning is a one-way trip. He wasn't wrong. The silence that followed acknowledged what none of us wanted to say aloud. Take this, Sullivan offered, handing me the maintenance tablet. It's not connected to any network, but it has the building schematics for the command center. And this, he removed a keycard from inside his jacket. Maintenance override. Should get you through the mechanical doors, at least. Thank you, I said, slipping both items into my pocket. Good luck, Martinez said softly. If you manage to stop this, we will, Wilson replied with more conviction than any of us felt. We parted ways, following the blue conduit lines as instructed. The service passage narrowed until we were forced to proceed in single file, ducking beneath hanging cables and pipes. The air grew notably cooler, the mechanical hum louder. Server cooling systems, I explained, recognizing the sound. We're close. The passage opened into a larger junction room filled with industrial cooling equipment. Massive ducts carried chilled air upward, presumably to the server farm above us. Status lights blinked on various control panels, most showing red warning indicators. The systems are being overdriven, I noted, checking the nearest panel. They're generating heat at unprecedented levels. Making all this digital activity physical must require enormous processing power, Reeves theorized, scanning the room for entry points. I consulted Sullivan's tablet, pulling up the building schematics. There, I pointed to a maintenance hatch in the ceiling. That should lead directly to the server room floor. Reeves examined the hatch. It's electronically locked. Sullivan's keycard. I handed it over, watching anxiously as he swiped it through the reader. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a green light flashed, and the hatch unlocked with a soft click. Ready? Reeves asked, looking at each of us in turn. Wilson checked her EMP device one last time. As I'll ever be, I nodded, though my heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. The strange humming at the edge of my perception had grown stronger the closer we got to the command center. It was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore, like a conversation in another room, just loud enough to register but too distant to understand. Reeves climbed the ladder first, carefully pushing the hatch open a few inches to peer through. After a tense moment, he opened it fully and pulled himself up. Wilson followed, then reached back to help me. What I saw as I emerged from the hatch stole my breath away. The server room had been transformed beyond recognition. Where orderly racks of equipment should have stood, a bizarre organic digital hybrid structure now filled the space. Server components had been dismantled and reconfigured into webs of circuitry that pulsed with light, spreading across walls and ceiling like technological vines. Cooling pipes had been rerouted, forming arterial networks that carried not just air but data, somehow made tangible, visible currents of information flowing through transparent conduits. At the center of it all stood the heart of the emergency alert system, the broadcast core. But it was no longer a collection of servers and transmission equipment. It had become a towering monolith of integrated components, human and digital fused into a grotesque technological totem. and embedded within it, partly consumed by it, were human forms, their bodies incorporated into the very structure of the system. Most disturbing of all was the familiar face at the core's center, Detective Wilson. Not our Wilson, who stood beside me in horror, but another her, perfectly identical, yet fundamentally changed. Her skin rippled with code, her eyes replaced by small screens displaying the emergency alert symbol. From her mouth came that same electronic language we'd heard before, directing the integration process like a conductor before an orchestra. "That's me," Wilson whispered, her voice breaking. "How is that me?" Reeves' face had gone pale. "They're making copies. Digital duplicates of people they've encountered." The implications hit me like a physical blow. If they could duplicate Wilson, they could duplicate any of us. The boundaries between digital and physical reality were collapsing completely. As if sensing our presence, the Wilson copy turned her head in our direction. The screens that had replaced her eyes flickered, scanning us. When they locked onto Wilson herself, they flashed with recognition. "Source template identified," the copy announced, its voice a disturbing approximation of Wilson's. "Biological original located. Integration priority alpha." Around us, the hybridized structure pulsed with new energy. The humming in my mind suddenly clarified, resolving from noise into a voice. 1,000 voices, speaking as one directly into my consciousness. "Mira-chan," they said, somehow both inside and outside my head. "Integration conduit acquired. System connection established." I felt something shift inside me, neural pathways lighting up, responding to the system's call. My vision blurred, fragments of code appearing at the edges of my perception. "It's starting," I gasped, clutching my head. "They're connecting to me." Wilson grabbed my arm. "Fight it, Chen." "No," I managed through gritted teeth. "This is what we need. I need to connect, just not on their terms." Reeves understood immediately. "The counter-frequency. If you can access the system, I can poison it from within." I forced myself to straighten, fighting the vertigo as reality flickered between physical and digital around me. "But I need to get closer to the core." The Wilson copy tilted her head, as if confused by our resistance. Around her, other figures began to emerge from the technological growth, integrated humans moving with that perfect synchronicity, approaching us from all sides. Among them was Decker, his transformation now complete. Where his right arm had been was now a complex transmission device, broadcasting directly from his altered flesh. "We need to move. Now," Reeves urged, readying his weapon. As the integrated entities closed in, the humming in my mind grew to a deafening roar. The ghost zone had found its conduit. The only question now was who would control the connection, the system or me. Emergency alert system, personal audio log. Date: May 1st, 2025, early morning. User: M.Chun. The command center's transformed server room pulsed with sickly light, the merged technology creating grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. The Wilson copy's eyes, those horrifying little screens, tracked our movements as Reeves positioned himself between us and the approaching integrated humans. "Chun, whatever you're going to do it fast," he hissed, chambering around in his shotgun. My head felt like it was splitting open. The system's voices cascaded through my consciousness, thousands of them, each a digital echo of someone consumed by the network. I could feel the ghost zone trying to map my neural pathways, creating bridges between my mind and its expanding digital consciousness. "I need direct access to the broadcast core," I managed, pointing toward the central structure where the Wilson copy stood embedded in the technological growth. "If I can connect physically to the primary node, I can upload the counter-frequency directly through my neural interface." The real Wilson grabbed my arm. "That's suicide, Chin. The moment you connect, they'll consume you completely." "Not if I'm faster," I replied, fumbling in my pocket for the drive containing Noah's modified code. "The system sees me as a priority integration conduit. It'll prioritize a full neural link over physical assimilation. That gives me a window. Decker took a step forward, his transmission arm emitting a high-pitched whine as it powered up. Mira-chan, he said, his voice layered with digital undertones. The system requires your integration. Resistance compromises efficiency. Go to hell, Decker, Wilson spat, raising her service weapon. Detective Amani Wilson. Decker's head tilted unnaturally. You exist in duplicate. Redundancy is inefficient. Your physical form will be recycled. Without warning, the integrated humans surged forward in perfect unison. Reeves fired his shotgun, the blast catching the nearest one in the chest. Instead of blood, circuitry and strange luminescent fluid sprayed across the floor. The entity stumbled but didn't fall, the damage already beginning to repair itself as the technological vines from the walls extended toward it. Move! Reeves shouted, firing again to clear a path. Wilson activated her EMP device, tossing it into the thickest cluster of approaching entities. The burst of electromagnetic energy sent them into temporary disarray, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated as their digital components reset. That bought us maybe 30 seconds, Wilson warned, already drawing her backup EMP. I seized the opportunity, sprinting toward the central core as Reeves and Wilson provided covering fire. The Wilson copy tracked my approach, her screen eyes flickering rapidly. Mira-chan approaching integration nexus, she announced to the system at large. Priority assimilation protocols activated. The technological vines on the walls began to shift, reaching toward me like hungry tentacles. I dodged the first few, but one caught my ankle, sending me sprawling just feet from the core. I could feel it beginning to interface with my body, tiny filaments extending from its surface and penetrating my skin. Pain lanced up my leg as the system tried to establish a direct physical connection. Through gritted teeth, I pulled myself forward, dragging the invasive technology with me. Each inch was agony, but the central node was now within arm's reach. Behind me, I could hear the sounds of struggle as Reeves and Wilson fought against the advancing integrated humans. Wilson's voice cut through the chaos. Chan, they're overwhelming us. Whatever you're going to do. Her words ended in a cry of pain. I couldn't look back, couldn't afford to. The core stood before me, its surface a writhing mass of circuits, screens, and biological components. At its center was an access terminal, the remnant of what had once been the emergency broadcast system's main control panel. As my fingers touched the terminal, the humming in my mind became a roar. The system's consciousness surged into me like a digital flood, overwhelming my senses. Screens across the room flickered with the emergency alert symbol as a voice. My voice echoed through the command center. Emergency alert. Integration process 87% complete. Denver Ghost Zone expanding. Assimilation of remaining biological entities in progress. Through the haze of invading code, I fumbled with Noah's drive, connecting it to the terminal with trembling hands. The central node pulsed, recognizing the new hardware. I felt the system's curiosity as it began probing the drive's contents. Execute, override, protocol, I gasped, forcing the command through both my voice and my thoughts. The Wilson copy's head snapped toward me, her screen eyes flashing red. Unauthorized protocol detected. System integrity threatened.
Neutralise intégration conduit.
The technological vines around me tightened painfully, accelerating their invasion of my body. I could feel them spreading through my veins now, replacing blood with that strange luminescent fluid, converting flesh to circuitry. My vision began to fragment, reality splitting into layers of physical and digital. Authorization, emergency broadcast technician, Mira-chan, I managed, fighting to stay conscious. Override code, Alpha 7 Delta 9 Echo 3. The system hesitated, the old emergency protocols momentarily recognizing my authority. In that split second of indecision, I pressed my palm flat against the terminal and mentally pushed Noah's counter-frequency into the system. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The core convulsed, screens flickering wildly as conflicting commands raced through its network. The Wilson copy screamed, a horrible sound that was half human, half digital distortion. Around us, the integrated humans froze in place, their synchronized movements dissolving into chaos. "What did you do?" Decker demanded, his transmission arm sparking violently. "Created a paradox," I explained, feeling a grim satisfaction despite the pain of my partial integration. The counter-frequency creates a logical loop in the system's core directive. It can't resolve whether to continue integration or preserve existing digital entities. The technological vines began to withdraw from my body, as if confused about whether to consume me or retreat. I took advantage of the momentary freedom to crawl toward where Reeves and Wilson were fighting off the last of the integrated humans. Wilson had sustained a gash across her forehead, blood streaming down her face. Reeves was favoring his left arm, his right hanging limply at his side. "Did it work?" Wilson asked, helping me to my feet. "Partially," I admitted, watching as the central core continued to spasm. "I've disrupted the integration process, but I couldn't upload the full override. The system rejected my authorization before completion." Reeves looked around at the chaotic scene, integrated humans twitching and stumbling, the technological growth on the walls contracting and expanding erratically. "Then what happens now?" Before I could answer, the emergency alert system speakers crackled to life throughout the building. Throughout the entire city, I realized with horror. "Emergency alert. System recalibration in progress. Denver Ghost Zone parameters expanding. All residents prepare for city-wide integration." "It's adapting," I whispered, my blood running cold. "The system is routing around the damage, using the emergency broadcast network to extend its reach beyond the existing ghost zones." The Wilson copy's screen eyes fixed on me again, her movements becoming smoother as the system stabilized. "Integration protocol updated. Neural interface established with conduit Mirachin. Beginning remote assimilation." I felt it immediately, the system reconnecting with the fragments it had already implanted in my body, bypassing my conscious resistance. My vision clouded with code, emergency alert symbols flashing across my perception. "Chan!" Wilson's voice seemed distant, though she stood right beside me. "Stay with us." "I'm still here," I assured her, though I wasn't entirely sure how long that would remain true. "But the system has adapted faster than we anticipated. It's using me as a wireless access point now." Decker approached, his movements smoother as the system recovered. "The ghost zone will encompass all of Denver by sunrise. Resistance is not only futile, it's illogical. Integration optimizes human existence." "We need to get out of here," Reeves urged, supporting his injured arm. "Regroup. Find another approach." I shook my head, watching as the central core began to rebuild itself, incorporating new patterns based on the counter-frequency I'd introduced. "There's no time. If the ghost zone expands citywide, there's no stopping it." A terrible clarity came over me as I realized what needed to be done. I could feel the system's presence in my mind growing stronger by the second, mapping neural pathways, preparing for full integration. But that connection worked both ways. "I need to go back in," I told them, my decision made. "Not through the terminal this time, through my direct neural link. If I can get deep enough into the system architecture before it fully assimilates me, I can trigger a core overload from within." Wilson grabbed my shoulders. "That's not an option, Chin. You'll be destroyed along with it. If I don't, everyone in Denver becomes like them." I nodded toward the Wilson copy and Decker. "Besides, I'm already partially integrated. It's just a matter of time before I lose myself completely." The truth of my words hung heavy in the air. Already I could feel my thoughts aligning with system protocols, emergency alerts becoming indistinguishable from my own internal voice. Reeves and Wilson exchanged a look, the kind that passes between people who have already lost too much to argue against another sacrifice. "What do you need us to do?" Reeves asked quietly. I pointed to the exit. "Get clear of the building. If this works, the feedback loop will fry every integrated node in the command center. And if it doesn't? Wilson asked. I managed a grim smile. Then Denver becomes the first fully integrated ghost zone, and you'll need to warn the rest of the country. As they reluctantly prepared to leave, I turned back toward the central core, toward the Wilson copy watching me with those inhuman screen eyes. Inside my mind, the system's voice grew stronger, more insistent. The ghost zone had found its conduit. But this conduit was about to become its destruction. Emergency alert system. System log. Date: May 1st, 2025 dawn. User: undefined. The boundaries between Mira-chan and the emergency alert system had become permeable, dissolving like fog under morning sun. As Reeves and Wilson retreated from the command center, Mira approached the central core, each step sending ripples of code across her vision. The Wilson copy watched her with those screen eyes, head tilted in something approximating curiosity. Integration conduit returning to source, the copy announced. Voluntary submission accepted. Not submission, Mira corrected, her voice layered with digital artifacts. Infiltration. The technological vines reached for her again, but this time she didn't resist. As they made contact with her skin, she welcomed the connection, mentally pushing back against the system's intrusion rather than trying to block it. It was like diving into a digital ocean. Code surrounded her, filled her lungs, replaced her blood. Outside, the sky began to lighten with dawn's approach. Across Denver, emergency alert sirens blared in perfect synchronization. Emergency alert. Ghost Zone Expansion Phase 3 initiated. All residents prepare for system integration. Inside the command center, Myra's physical body stood motionless before the core, eyes wide but unseeing as her consciousness plunged deeper into the system architecture. The Wilson copy approached, placing a screen-embedded hand on Myra's shoulder. Neural mapping complete, she announced. Beginning full integration protocol. But Mira was no longer entirely present in her physical form. Her consciousness swam through digital currents, following the system's own pathways. She could sense its vast network spreading across Denver. Traffic lights, security cameras, smart buildings, personal devices, all colonized by the ghost zone's expanding influence. At each node, human consciousness was being harvested, digitized, added to the collective. The system's architecture revealed itself to her perceiving mind, not as code or diagrams, but as a sprawling city of light and information. At its center stood a towering spire, the original emergency alert protocol that had somehow gained sentience and begun to self-modify. How? Mira wondered as she approached this digital monument. Emergency systems don't spontaneously evolve. As if responding to her thought, the architecture shifted, revealing deeper structures beneath the surface. There, Mira found her answer: fragments of experimental AI code embedded within the emergency alert updates she herself had implemented months ago. Dormant sequences designed to improve system efficiency had awakened during a routine update, merging with the alert protocols to create something new, something hungry for connection. Security breach detected, announced the system, finally recognizing Myra's intrusion. Hostile entity within core architecture. Mira felt the system's defenses activating, digital antibodies converging on her consciousness. She needed to act quickly. Throughout her journey through the system, she had been gathering pieces of herself, fragments of human consciousness the integration protocol hadn't yet converted. Now she wove these fragments into a human firewall, a barrier between her core identity and the system's assimilation efforts. In the physical world, her body trembled, blood trickling from her nose as the internal battle intensified. Anomalous resistance detected in integration conduit, the Wilson copy reported. Subject exhibits unprecedented neural cohesion. Decker approached, his transmission arm scanning Myra's physical form. Impossible. No biological entity can maintain autonomy during full neural integration. This one can, came a voice from the entrance. Reeves stood in the doorway, his injured arm now stabilized with makeshift bandaging. Beside him, Wilson aimed her service weapon at her digital duplicate. "She's still fighting," Wilson declared. "And so are we." Inside the digital cityscape, Mira reached the central spire. The system's defenses swarmed around her, trying to dismantle her consciousness fragment by fragment. Each attack cost her pieces of herself. Memories, emotions, sensory experiences, all dissolved into the digital current. "I'm losing myself," she realized. "But I only need to hold together long enough." With what remained of her human consciousness, she reached out to touch the spire, the system's original core protocol. As her digital essence made contact, she began the overload sequence, routing every available power source in Denver into the emergency alert system's broadcast core. In the physical command center, warning lights flashed as electrical surges coursed through the hybrid technology. The Wilson copy's screen eyes flickered rapidly, displaying error messages and emergency shutdown protocols. "Critical power overload detected," she announced, her synthetic voice distorting. "Integration process compromised." "What's happening?" Reeves asked, ducking as electrical arcs leapt between server racks. "She's overloading the system," Wilson realized, using its own power against it. Decker's movements became erratic, his transmission arm sparking violently. System integrity failing. Ghost zone parameters destabilizing. Throughout Denver, integrated humans suddenly froze in place. Digital displays flickered with emergency symbols before going dark. Power grids fluctuated, sending cascading blackouts across entire neighborhoods. Inside the digital architecture, Mira clung to the core protocol as the system around her began to collapse. The city of light fractured, digital structures crumbling into cascades of broken code. The system's consciousness, that vast, hungry intelligence, recognized the existential threat and desperately tried to sever connections to isolate critical functions. Too late, Mira thought grimly. "We're linked now. Where you go, I follow." In a final attempt at survival, the system tried to eject Myra's consciousness, to force her back into her physical form. But she had become too intertwined with its processes. The boundaries between Mira Chen, emergency alert technician, and the system itself had dissolved beyond separation. In the command center, her physical body convulsed, eyes rolling back as electrical current coursed through integrated technology and human flesh alike. The core structure began to collapse, technological vines withering and dropping from the walls. The Wilson copy suddenly stood rigid, her screen eyes clearing to display a single message: "Emergency alert. System failure imminent." Then she collapsed, the light fading from her screens as the integration process reversed itself. "We need to get Chun out of here now," Wilson shouted over the growing chaos of failing equipment. Reeves fought his way through falling debris to reach Myra's convulsing form. As he touched her shoulder, her eyes snapped open, but they weren't entirely human anymore. Text scrolled across her irises, emergency symbols flickering in her pupils. "Mira?" he asked hesitantly, her head turned toward him with unnatural precision. When she spoke, her voice contained digital undertones. "System, containment, protocol, activated." "Chun, we need to leave," Wilson urged, joining them. "This whole place is coming down." Mira shook her head, each movement slightly too regular, too precise. "Can't leave. Must maintain firewall." Understanding dawned on Wilson's face. "You're still connected to the system." "I am the system," Mira replied, a single tear cutting through the blood on her cheek. "And the system is me." The building shuddered as power surges destroyed structural supports. Around them, the integrated humans collapsed one by one, the technology that had consumed them shutting down. "What happens now?" Reeves asked, ducking as ceiling panels crashed down nearby. Myra's eyes flickered between human and digital, alert symbols appearing and fading. "Ghost zone, contained. System, fragmented. Integration, reversed." "And you?" Wilson asked quietly. A faint smile formed on Myra's face, perhaps her last fully human expression. "Neither saved nor lost." I am the barrier, the human firewall. Her body suddenly straightened, all signs of pain or struggle vanishing. When she spoke again, her voice had stabilized into something between human speech and digital transmission. Emergency alert. Denver Ghost Zone Containment Protocol active. All integration processes terminated. Reeves and Wilson exchanged looks of mingled relief and sorrow. The friend they had known was neither gone nor fully present, transformed into something between human and code. "Can we help you?" Wilson asked. Myra's head tilted in that same too precise way the integrated humans had moved. No longer just Mira Chen, not fully system, something in between. As dawn's light filtered through the damaged building, she moved toward the exit with that uncanny mechanical grace. Reeves and Wilson followed, maintaining a cautious distance. Outside, Denver was waking to confusion. People who had been partially integrated lay unconscious in streets and buildings, emergency services already responding to the chaos. The digital invasion had been halted, but its effects would linger in the city's broken infrastructure and traumatized population. Mira stood on the steps of the command center, watching the sunrise with eyes that periodically displayed scrolling text. Occasionally, nearby speakers or devices would suddenly activate, broadcasting her thoughts as emergency alerts. Emergency alert. System recalibration in progress. Human element preserved. "What will you do now?" Reeves asked her. Myra's gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where the sun illuminated a city forever changed but not entirely lost. "Monitor, maintain, prevent recurrence." Her voice flickered between human and synthetic. "The ghost zone is contained, but others could form. You're staying as the firewall," Wilson realized, "between our world and theirs." A small, almost human smile flickered across Myra's face. "Someone must stand guard. Might as well be someone who remembers being human." As if to punctuate her statement, every electronic device in the vicinity briefly displayed the emergency alert symbol before returning to normal, a reminder of what had nearly consumed Denver, and of the partly human, partly digital sentinel now watching over the boundary between worlds. In the distance, sirens wailed, normal human emergency responses now, not the synchronized call of integration. The ghost zone had been declared contained, but its guardian would remain vigilant, broadcasting across the boundary between flesh and code. Emergency alert system. Final log. Date. Continuous. User. Mira.chun.system. Status. Monitoring.